utilize a simulation in your course. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Paul Cotter, and I'm the Director of Product Marketing here at Stukent, and I'm thrilled to be your host. As we get started today, go ahead and fill out the poll that's popping up on your screen right now. Question is, have you used a simulation in your course before? At Stukent, our goal is to help bridge the gap between academia and industry. One of the ways that we do that is by creating simulations where students will take on a role within a company, receive messages and feedback from their boss, and have the opportunity to test and master necessary skills within the safety of a simulated environment. If you would like, click on the link on your screen to learn more about Simternships at Stukent. Now I'm excited for today's panel on simulations, and I want to introduce our panel to you. Simulations have become a widely used tool in education to help students practice and prepare for future careers. All of our panelists today have experience using simulations in their various courses. I'm excited for all of the incredible insights that they will share with us today. So I'd like to invite our panel to the stage right now. We have Bret Skousen from Utah Valley University, Rebecca Cooney from Washington State University, Tammy Katuin from Valley City State University, and Traci Bitler from Rhodes State College. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you.
The way I'd like to start the panel today is I'll start with Bret, because he's first on my screen, and just have each of you go through and take a minute or so to tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourselves, and tell us how long you've used simulations in your courses. Bret, we'll start with you.
Great, thanks, Paul. So I'm Bret Skousen. I'm what they call a professional in residence at Utah Valley University. That means I come with business experience, and I have 30 plus years of business experience and companies like Black & Decker. I spent 16 years there, and then in banking, and then have done fintech and regular tech companies also, and still doing tech companies today. So that's been a lot of fun for me, and to be able to give back to students in that way. I have about 10 years doing simulations in some shape or format. And so it's something that I utilize and really enjoy. And the courses I'm teaching right now in the undergrad, I teach marketing and entrepreneurship courses. And then I teach strategy, corporate strategy to the MBAs.
Great. Thank you, Bret. Now, Tammy, you're next on my screen.
Hello, I'm Tammy Katuin. I teach mostly marketing courses at Valley City State University in Valley City, North Dakota. I'm in my 6th year teaching at VCSU, about 15 years teaching in higher ed. I also come out of industry. I was a marketing director for a large real estate firm for about 16 years. So I love bringing my experience to my classrooms. As far as simulations go, I started using Stukent's first simulation, I believe, in 2019. That was when digital marketing simulation was, I think, the first one developed by Stukent, and it was called Mimic Pro, and students were acting as a marketer for Kent's Camera Castle back then. So simulations have come a long way. I'm using many of them now in my courses for professional sales, principles of marketing, the digital marketing, consumer behavior, and I probably am missing one, but if there's a sim that goes with the ebook that I'm using, I'm going to use it.
Great. Thank you, Tammy. You are a veteran with our simulations. Welcome. Thanks for being with us today. Next on my screen is Rebecca.
Hello, Rebecca Cooney. I am a Les Smith Distinguished Professor at Washington State University in the Edward R. Murrow College of Communication. I teach classes in branding and advertising and digital marketing. And I also lead undergraduate assessment efforts for Memorial College and am the past director of online programs, where I was for 9 years. I serve as a co-investigator on a grant called the Center of Excellence for Natural Product Drug Interaction Research. And I have been in the career of marketing and advertising and public relations now 28 years. I do teach 2 classes that use simulations. One is the social media marketing sim, and then I also use the consumer insights or consumer branding simulation. And I think I'm on about year 4 of using the simulations as part of my in-curriculum. And same, I also, if I have an ebook for Stukent and it has a simulation, I'm going to use it.
Great, thank you, Rebecca. Now, Traci, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Traci Bitler, and I am an assistant professor at Rhodes State College for Management and Marketing. I've been a professor here for 5 years, and I've been using Stukent products for those entire 5 years. And sorry, I'm frozen.
Oh, we can still see you. You're not frozen on our end.
Okay.
Traci, we'll give you a moment. Maybe you want to log off and then log back in. And we'll get started with our first question while you're doing that, okay? Okay, so our first question that we have is, how do you keep your students motivated and engaged when using simulations, especially in online or hybrid learning environments? So this question, we want to start with Bret, then Rebecca, then Tammy, then Traci.
Okay, so what's interesting to me is I study generations, and I try and study motivation, especially intrinsic motivation. So this was a very interesting question. One thing that I find is anything we can do to have transferable skills to our students to help them in the workplace is going to motivate them. Some of the ways I do this, I try and get anything with a sense of presence and immersion. And so I do that with a lot of interactive activities with them, even online. And that's one of my biggest struggles always is online, but trying to get them very interactive and giving them real life feedback, trying to incorporate gamification into it, trying to really help them be competitive with one another. Those things seem to help get them in the game as we go through this. So those are some of the things that I do.
Adding on to that, I teach both in-person and online courses. And so in the online space, I created something that's called the Simulation Support Group. And I did it as a discussion board in Canvas. And so it's a community space that's designed to give students a place to ask questions, share resources or ideas, and then also generally just help each other out when they hit snags. And it's the most popular discussion forum in my lineup for sure. I also have several past students who have taken their own initiative to create cheat sheets and tutorials, tip lists and videos around specific aspects of the simulation rounds. And these resources are not only shared with the current students, but I also incorporate them into the course space for future semesters as a sort of a legacy and a help. And then the last thing I'll note is that I regularly ask for feedback from students on how things are going with the simulation. And this feedback is then shared with future students as a way to motivate and normalize any angst that they're having.
Okay, I think I've got everything back to normal. So first, let me say that the simulation itself is motivating for students. Once my students complete the first round, they are hooked. However, one of my favorite ways to keep students engaged is by creating the competitive atmosphere, I think like Bret had said. For simulations that Stukent offers like student ranking, it's a no-brainer. The students see where their score ranks against other students in the class. And I just offer bonus points to the top 3 in class. And that just makes it a little more interesting, right? It also creates the friendly competition in the classroom. What's fun is the students brag and discuss where they landed in the round. And it's kind of fun too in my online classes, because I also have a discussion board, and they talk about that in that as well. Hey, I beat you this time. No, I got you this time. So that's always fun. And then there are some simulations that don't offer ranking, where that competition then becomes more focused on a specific topics, like which student earned the most ROI for that specific round, or which student campaign had the highest click-through rate increase. And that competition really engages the students and creates a fun classroom atmosphere, whether it be an online class or a seated class.
All right, I guess I'm up next. So, these simulations, as you said, Tracy, are self-motivating a lot of the times, but I start off, before we even get started using the simulations, by selling the benefits to the students on the simulations themselves, and how those skills that they're going to be applying, that they, can transfer to their future, how they transfer to their resume and transfer to their confidence. And so that really kind of sets the tone. And then I introduce in a face-to-face class, I introduce the first round, and we kind of work through that. And then I always want to get feedback by, before we start the next round, how everybody did, they have any questions. And then the competition is huge when we can do that. And I hope that, and I heard that maybe that'll be introduced into more simulations, because the ranking part is a real motivator. I have a lot of athletes in my program, and they're by nature competitive. And I also encourage them to work together on their rounds to, bounce ideas off of each other and come up with the best decisions they make. They're doing them individually. I don't have them do the simulations in rounds, but I encourage them to work together to help make those choices. So it's really helpful, especially I feel in my online courses, because it's something that they can really get involved in and engaged and self-motivate through that time that we're using the simulations.
Well, thank you, everyone, for those responses. In general, it sounds like the simulations are engaging for the students, but it sounds like you do some supplementary things that really help to take it to the next level with them. So the next question I have is, how do simulations contribute to the development of critical thinking, problem solving, and decision-making skills among your students? And for the order with this one, we'll start with Rebecca, then Tammy, then Traci, then Bret.
Great, happy to kick this one off. So one of my past students credits the simulation experience in helping her get her dream job as a social media manager with the WSU volleyball team. So she told me that in her interview, she talked about the simulation experience, and they were so impressed with her knowledge of concepts, vocabulary, and ability to interpret metrics, reports, and make data-driven assessments that she was selected out of the 50 candidates immediately. So really big coup for her. Also, there in the social media simulation, and maybe Tracy can relate to this, the rounds 7 through 9 are an example of what I call from tears to agency. One of my past students experienced so many challenges and frustrations that she decided to create her own tutorial series to help others navigate key aspects of the rounds, with specific emphasis on selecting influencers. And so she went from 0 views on her YouTube to 1.5 or 1,500 views in very, very short order, and she considers that like a major success. So I love the agency aspects that simulations can provide. And my last note will be that I've had several students who are quite shy or lack confidence, who've really embraced the simulation experience, and they just shine through it. And several of them have ended up becoming peer mentors during live walkthroughs, as well as online in my discussion forums.
Yeah, for me, I think simulations are the #1 tool in my courses that encourage the development of critical thinking, problem solving, and decision making, because it's a really safe place for them to do that. And, they have to, create surveys and interpret results and create or make choices on market reports and interpret that data. And then as they move forward, they have to make decisions and on their performance based on the data. So it is an incredible tool I have found for my courses for students to develop those skills in a very safe place.
Hi. So again, mimicking what both of them said, each round of the simulation, it truly helps the student develop those critical thinking skills. The simulations give the students like all the information and the data that they need to work through it, the detailed charts, the videos, and all the resources. So they have the ability to teach themselves how to critically think through with our guidance and with the guidance of the simulation. And they do it without even realizing that they just did it. And I have students come to class and they're like, hey, we figured this out. And that's a huge win when they are able to say, we figured this out on our own. We used the tools that were there. We followed the directions. It was really great. So that's a real win and a major confidence booster for students when they get that, I did it myself and I was able to.
I love what's been said. Couple things that I would add is anytime we can get students into realistic scenarios where they can make those decisions, I do think it's a win. One thing that I do is, there's so many college courses and so many things that we have out there that are just memorization and things like this. This gets them to real world application. And another tool that I use in this is I have them do a ton of reflection during each round of the simulation. I think that's where most of the learning actually takes place. And they hate it in the beginning. In the end, they're like, oh my gosh, this is where I learn the most. And I have them reflect individually, and then I have them reflect as a team. And so they go through and they learn so much. And so we get into the peer stuff and we get into that type of thing. So that's one thing that I would add really is the reflection portion, which they have to decide, they have to make sense of why they did it and why they didn't do it. And those are things that I love, still being an employer in the Valley that I'm in, when students come to me and they just know vocabulary, they don't know anything else. It's really difficult. When I was at Black & Decker, it was not a problem because we'd spend $22,000 on each employee coming in their first year. But in these small companies, they have to be ready to go on day one or they're not valuable. And Rebecca, I loved your story. That was awesome. So.
Those are great stories. Thank you for sharing that. It's great to hear the ways that the simulations do contribute to developing those skills with your students. Now, the next question is, how can simulations be combined with other instructional methods like lectures, discussions, case studies, etc., in order to optimize learning and transfer among your students? Now this one, we're going to let Tammy answer first, then Traci, Bret, and Rebecca.
Yeah, so that's interesting the way it works. When I started using simulations, it became quickly pretty clear that it's just an integral part of all of the other regular stuff that we do, right? So when the Simternships are developed along with the e-textbooks, they just fit in naturally. So in all of the simulations I've used, I always look at the suggested course schedule from the author and the schedule for the simulation and how that fits. So we'll start off in some classes like marketing principles and digital marketing. We do the full, first half of the semester in the textbook with lectures, with case studies, with presentations, all that traditional stuff, and get them to the point where they have the knowledge set to start applying this knowledge and turning it into skills using the simulation. So it is just really a seamless integration.
I agree with Tammy 100%, that the integration and how it aligns so well with what's in the courseware and the simulation. It's wonderful. However, in talking about like discussion rooms and classroom discussions, let me just say that the discussions can get quite robust when the simulations are brought into the lecture and what they're experiencing. It sparks true engagement in the subject matter. And I have to say that the students' excitement and enthusiasm, it is really inspiring to me as a professor, because they're getting it, and that's kind of what we dream about, right? Specifically, when they're talking, they discuss how what they're working on in the simulation really clarifies what they just read or what we're talking about in the lecture, and they actively participate in that lecture or the discussion, whichever, without having to like pull them into the discussion. So it's really very, I don't know, I used inspiring already, but it truly is great that they are able to just jump in, and there's no, well, you know, what do you think about that? They just jump in. And then when we're working with like some of the case studies, it also aligns the experience and the scenario of the case study to what's also in the rounds. And all of that alignment truly helps them bring what they've learned to wherever they're working or where they plan to work, and the retention of the subject matter and the material is off the charts, really.
There we go. Yeah, no. So once again, I love what's being said here. What I'm really looking at is I'm looking from concept to application. And there's so many different tools we can use through this. I mean, if you throw them straight into a simulation without any of the vocabulary, it becomes very tough and very frustrating. It's almost insurmountable on what they can accomplish from that. And so by doing lectures, I do reading quizzes, I do a lot of different things to try and get them. I do a lot of team exercises. I do a lot of different things so that the different learning styles can all be met, right? And then I also just love to end with application. In this case, with these simulations, I think they fit very well. I totally agree with that on the other things that have been said. And so I will try and pair the simulation with the concept being taught. So most of the simulation in like modern marketing principles is done near the end. So anyway, that's how I do that.
And just adding to what's already been said, I would just say that the simulation rounds absolutely reinforce what they are learning in lectures, discussions, interactive in-class activities, and other assignments. It all ties together the way that I approach it, and it gives them new vocabulary and knowledge that again is really transferable, especially when they get to job interviews and other information sessions with alums and things. For my in-person classes, I designate sim days. It's actually on the course schedule. Sim days are designed to walk through each round of the simulation. So we go through each portion together. We review supplemental materials in real time. We talk through the vocabulary, the research findings, the build of ads or value proposition statements or whatever is happening, and we work through them all together. I use like a mock student sort of account to go through it with them in real time. But I don't lead them one way or the other. I just help them interpret the information and I guide them through decision making. And I find that most of my students do not complete the rounds during my live session as much as they use it as a place to learn, practice, and then get a better understanding of all those concepts that are presented.
Well, thank you. Those are really interesting ways that you guys combine the simulations or the Simternships with your other classroom activities. So kind of piggybacking off of that question, our next one is how do you structure and integrate simulations into your course curriculum? For example, Do you use simulations as standalone activities, or do you incorporate them into the broader course projects or assignments? So with this one, we'll start with Traci, then Bret, Rebecca, and Tammy.
Okay, so in my classes, I say we integrate the simulations as standalone activities, but I really can't say that they're standalone because they align into Stukent courseware. Usually I begin the simulations, as Bret was saying, in like the third or fourth week of the semester. And that gives the students a chance to get comfortable with the flow, with some of the vocabulary, and just have a beginning understanding of the course material. Then I assign the rounds to align with the material that we've either reviewed or covered. I give the students the opportunity to complete multiple times. So like for me, it's just not you do the simulation and you're done. You have the opportunity to do the round, to get comfortable in understanding the round, then make your decisions. And maybe you didn't get in that green area that you wanted to. You want to try something a little different. So I reset the round and they're able to take it again. And it really does help them have a better understanding of how it flows. However, I do have one course where I utilize 2 simulations with one course. I have a combined digital marketing analytics course that includes both the digital marketing courseware, the digital marketing simulation, plus I add the digital marketing analytics simulation as a true standalone. And that gives the students the whole idea of what the course is about. We talk about the digital marketing, we talk about the analytics, and then they align all of it together, and it flows nicely for that course. So the flexibility of the simulations to be both standalone or aligned with courseware gives the students the ability to gain so much practical experience.
Great, thanks, Traci. So I do it a couple different ways, and I would say they're both under the category of integrated. I don't do anything standalone because I just don't, in most cases, shouldn't say all, but in most cases, they just don't have the concepts down well enough to be able to do it and do it well. But what I do is, like Traci was talking about, I take it through. So like this week, we're talking about pricing, and they're going to do the pricing part of the simulation, you know, and that type of thing. So we treat the concept and then move forward. But other things I've had success with is going through all of the exercises and curriculum that we need to for the semester and getting them prepared. And then at the very end, they go through a simulation and they do the whole thing. And then we're still giving feedback. We're still coming to class. We're still doing team exercises and things, but we save that to the very end. So that's kind of their capstone effect. So those are the 2 ways that I do it, and both have been very, very successful. I think it depends a little bit on the class, and I think it depends a little bit on the age of the student and where they're at in their college journey. So
Yes, thanks, Bret and Traci. I'm actually kind of actively in the process of reevaluating how I've done it. I've done it a few times in different ways. I do incorporate simulations right in with the lectures and the quizzes and the expert sessions and the interactive activities and the discussion. So mine are fully integrated for sure. I've been scheduling the simulation rounds to correlate with each week of the semester. So week 1 is round 1, week 2 is round 2. I also do that with quizzes. Part of the reason I did that, at least for my online class, was that I found that students were getting confused and couldn't figure out where they were supposed to be, just literally by the numbering system. But I think that there's merit to maybe stepping back and slowing down a little bit and making sure that they do have that vocabulary and some of the concepts are introduced prior to going through the round. So I definitely want to rethink that as I'm heading into my fall. I grade the simulation rounds to be worth whatever 15 to 20 points. But like Traci, I always give students the opportunity to restart a round if they're not happy with their score, because my goal is never to penalize, but to help them learn and improve. I also incorporate the opportunities for students to provide personal reflection throughout the experience. I use informal surveys and polls that count toward participation. But I think I like what Bret's talking about, and I think I want to do more intentional reflection, both written and in group for more peer involvement. So great suggestion, Bret.
Yeah, I would go along with a lot of that. I think the other thing that I might mention that I have discovered happens when they're working through these simulations is, for instance, marketing principles course. The end, final project is they're creating a full marketing plan for a new product for some company, and we're doing that and launching this new tote bag for Bowie in that class in the simulation. So it really, what they were learning in class and they're doing it in the simulations, and we're going to apply it in this marketing plan, really helps, solidify what they need to know if they're going to move into any kind of a marketing or even their own business of how you do that. How do you launch a new business? How do you launch a new product? And it's interesting that just this semester, we launched a small business incubator within our business program. And we're working with small businesses on a variety of things, launching a new business, launching a new product, or helping a new business that's struggling. And I have 3 of my marketing students that were all in my marketing principles class and several courses throughout their years with me, 2 seniors and a junior. And they're going to work with a small business that has a very successful business, but doesn't know how to market to be profitable, right? So the things that they are successful at is not making them a profit, and it's taking all of their time. So we had a meeting, and I'm going to be meeting with the students. We're going to, work with this business. And I think we've found a way to focus on a certain component of their business that takes less of their time and is 90% profit, right? And really push those. So it's going to be such a great experience for our students to, take what they've learned as freshmen all the way through and help this business. And man, what a great resume builder that is.
Awesome. You're all using the simulation in such amazing ways in your classroom, and it's great to hear those methods that you're using, and especially about the reflection. And it's really interesting to hear that and the feedback on that. The next question is about giving advice. What advice would you give to professors who are considering incorporating simulations into their teaching? For this one, we'll start with Bret, then Rebecca, Tammy, and Traci.
Okay, great. So some of the things that I would do or what I would say to professors starting simulations would be, 1, do your homework. Really make sure that the sim reflects your learning outcomes. Okay, if that doesn't, you're going to be in big trouble from the beginning if it doesn't align. I would start small. I started my first simulation with 1 section, so I could give it the due it needed, and I could learn it, and I could make sure, Rebecca, you said you go along with them. I do the same thing, so I'm learning and understanding exactly what they're doing. And when they say this, I say, yeah, I made that same mistake, because I love it for my students to understand the good, the bad, and the ugly of Bret Skousen. I bring in my consulting things each week and say, hey, this is where I screwed up. This is where we did really well. So I would start small and make sure that aligns. Make sure that the simulation has really good support. That's one thing I love about Stukent is the amount of support you have with really anything you need, but especially the simulations. The next thing I would do is prepare students for success. Make sure that they understand the context and the expectations moving forward with this, because a lot of them are very, very nervous. Especially, I have a lot of sophomores and some juniors, but mostly sophomores, and they are struggling at that point to really understand what this means to them. And last, debrief with them, reflect, and make corrections and make the connections to real life. If you can make these connections to real life, and many have said on this call so far, resume builders and things like that, if you can prepare them to go out into the workforce, it's going to be a win. So those are some of the things that I was thinking about as far as advice.
All good comments, Brett. I also believe that simulations are a great way to bring concepts to life, because in my experience, theory is often lost on students, and the simulations help them apply theory into practical application. And I really am an advocate. I also encourage faculty to incorporate simulations into curriculum as a way of bridging the gap that is often found between reading and quizzes and discussions and assignments, especially classes that do not have a service learning component or real clients. It's really hard to truly demonstrate these real world concepts, excuse me, show actual data and work through key terms and other vocabulary without the structure that a simulation provides. I also believe that students really enjoy the competitive aspect of the simulations. Tammy already referenced this. And they truly love being on the leaderboard or in the top 5. It's just a huge motivator.
Yes, it sure is. So my advice, if you're considering using Simternships in your classes, just do it. I mean, you have nothing to lose, but you will have a lot to gain. And I would advise you to lean heavily on your course success representatives. They're wonderful. If it's not in the resource, you can't find the resource, you can't find something, a quick email, and man, I got everything I need within a very short period of time. Has the simulations always been 100% smooth sailing? Absolutely not. There's been hiccups all along the way, but always have had really good support with that. Right, when I get students that are frustrated, when I get frustrated, I always get the answers and the support that we need. And the development of these simulations has been incredible. Every time I teach a new course, the simulation seems to have been updated and changed in some way. So again, my advice is to make sure that you know what has changed in the textbook and the courseware, the simulations, and run through that and be familiar with it before you launch it. Because I caught myself going through digital marketing this next semester, and it's like, oh, here we go, this is what we're doing. It's like, wait a minute, that's not what we did last semester. So sometimes it's challenging to stay ahead of the curve, but that's great. That's a great problem, because things are improving. They're always up to date and on trend, right? These are cutting edge simulations. I've used a lot of other simulations in the past, probably Bret has too, and others, and these they don't even compare. They're so realistic and give students so many good experiences that it's well worth your trying. Try one course and go from there. And like me, I'm using simulations in every course I teach except for one, because there's not a simulation available.
Awesome. And, I absolutely mimic what Tammy said. Just do it. Jump in and do it. The feedback that I get from these students that do the simulations is so positive. Stukent calls their simulations Simternships, and they were well named. My students tell me they feel like they are in an internship, but with the ability to make mistakes and learn without having any major lifelong consequences, right? They complete the simulation yourself before the students. If you have the time, run through it yourself so you can feel what they're going to feel and experience it. And then I think both Bret and I can't remember who else, but they actually complete the simulation with the students. If you have the ability to do so, run along the simulation with them, do it. It is so much fun. And the students really, they form a relationship with you through that. It fosters that positive student relationships. And I can't tell you how many students I've had come up and say, oh, Bitler, I beat you in that round. So it really makes a big difference, and they have a good time with it.
Okay, so just do it. I like that message. Great stuff. All right, so we are to our final question. And in this question, It's how do you facilitate student collaboration and teamwork within simulation exercises? And what techniques or tools do you use to encourage active participation and engagement among students during simulation sessions? So this one will start with Rebecca, then Tammy, Traci, and finally Bret, sorry.
I really already referenced a couple of my techniques already, but I'll just reiterate. I do find that having a simulation support group discussion forum is very, very helpful, especially if you are running a simulation in an online class where students are not able to regularly interact with each other in person. I have not used it in my in-person class as much because I provide space and during our live sessions to provide that interaction. But the simulation support group is the discussion forum in Canvas has been just a huge help to the students. The sim days that I do with the in-person students is also an amazing way to go through the supplemental material and talk about things like their audience personas, work out the best answers to the prompts that they've got, even working through the notifications hub. And what I really find the most helpful is that when I'm able to bring up those supplemental materials and I'm going through the vocabulary, there's a lot of acronyms that are happening in my sims. And so I feel it necessary to use that time of that live interaction to really help them decipher and interpret what they're looking at, because most of them have never experienced annual reports or looking at metrics, spreadsheets, or looking at these litany of acronyms that they would have to look up, and then even if they look them up, wouldn't really understand what they mean without having some kind of contextual application. And I also believe that the sim days have really improved attendance. And I'm sure that everyone else on the panel has experienced this in the sort of the post-pandemic, and getting everybody back and getting everybody excited and engaged to be physically in the classroom again. The sim days really improve the attendance. And also just ignite a passion and interest for the context of the course.
Yes, Rebecca, those are great ideas. I'm going to steal some of your ideas for that probably. So, yeah, the collaboration and teamwork is great when, especially those sims that have the rankings, because they really, get together on that. I had one team get a little upset with me one time because I gave away some of the secrets that they used for success. I was like, wait a minute, we're helping each other here. So it's really a good fit for collaboration. Online, I think the discussion boards that Rebecca was talking about with people to chime in with needing some help or having some tips, that's a great idea. That's 100%. I'm going to put that into effect. If we have time, I did want to, mention a couple of we talked about some of the other resources available with the simulations. Those certification exams that come with some of the sims are fantastic. With the digital marketing, to get a industry recognized certification at the end of that. That's my final exam. And I have students, I try to get students to get together to study for those because they're not easy exams. And, and then getting a completion of, certificate of completion for every Simternship that they do are, such also great resume builders. And we're going to be teaching sports marketing and NIL in the upcoming academic year. And that NIL class comes with 2 certifications. And, that's going to be really great for students that are interested in getting to that. So all those extra things also, I think, help with getting students more excited about them and being willing to work with each other and collaborate with each other. I think those are great.
Okay, so for me in my online courses, just like Rebecca did, I offer that discussion board for students, and I do it for my seated classes as well. And truly, since I can't be there for them 24/7, if they have a challenge, they bring their strategies or they bring their challenges to that discussion board, and they truly help each other out. And Tammy, you had said that your students had gotten a little annoyed that you shared the strategies, which is funny. In the discussion boards, my students share their strategies, so I don't have to be the one; they do it themselves. So it works out well. So the cool thing about all of that is they develop that bond, and that bond sticks with them throughout their time here at Rhodes State College, and it builds a sense of camaraderie, and it builds a sense of community, which, like Rebecca said, we're really challenged with getting that done in a post-pandemic world. But they are reaching out and doing that. And what's fun is the banter about the ranking too. Who overtook #1 spot? Did someone beat Bitler in this round? It really is a true community building and collaborative example of a great assignment.
Great. So for facilitating collaboration, I have a little formula that I try and use here. I try and use individual exercises first, like I mentioned earlier, because that gets them prepared to come to the team exercises that we do. And then I have them in the team exercise rotate roles. So one person's the leader this time, one person's the scribe, one person's paying attention to this or that, or, whatever happens. And I have them rotate that through the different rounds so that people can't hide as much, and it forces them to collaborate with each other. I also set up collaboration tools for them. We're a Microsoft shop, so it's usually in Teams where I set up their own personalized teams so they can have their conversations in there and things like that within their teams. So they're not giving away their secret sauce. It's a little bit different than some of you there, because I really try and heighten that competition. I'm very competitive. Grew up with 4 brothers, and it was a good time. But using those collaboration tools, and then just the peer feedback and reflection. So I try and do that for every round and everything I do, just so they know what's coming and they know exactly what's going to happen from round to round to round. So anyway, those are some of the things that I do to try and facilitate that collaboration.
Well, thanks for sharing those tips and those techniques that you guys use. It's great to hear that. You would think that the simulation would naturally be maybe kind of an isolating or solo experience, but you guys have done a fantastic job of, really making it a collaboration and a teamwork where you get the class involved with each other, and that's great. Well, thank you so much, each one of you, for your participation and your insights on all the different ways educators can implement simulations into their teaching. And I want to thank all of you who have taken the time to join us today. If you have any questions on how you can integrate a Stukent simulation into any of your courses, we want to invite you to hop on a call with a Stukent course consultant today. They can walk you through any of our marketing, business, sales, accounting, or communication Simternships to find the best fit for your course. So go ahead and click on the link that's on your screen to schedule a walkthrough of any of our simulations. Also, at Stukent, we host many virtual events throughout the year, and we're always looking to partner with educators to share new insights for business marketing and communication professors. If you enjoyed this event and you're interested in speaking at future webinars, please take a moment to click on the link on your screen to apply to speak. Thank you again to our panelists for joining us today and for participating in this chat. We appreciate your continued support. Have a wonderful day, and remember to stay current with Stukent.